Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
All right. It's 16. I think we have to wait for another few minutes,
Okay.
to notify our viewers, inshallah.
Okay.
How are you, Najibah?
I'm good.
You're good.
I'm good,
Alhamdulillah.
alhamdulillah. Yes, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good as well.
Okay.
Inshallah. It feels so weird, right? Definitely.
It feels more macam personal when we do it like
Yes,
this.
yes.
Kan?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope dia akan jadi lebih engaging lah kot. Since
Yeah.
we both like this kan.
Uh-uh.
Hope dia akan jadi lebih engaging. Alright. Okay. So I think we're good to go, inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah. So okay.
Is my voice okay? Can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear me clearly? Okay.
Your voice is clear. My voice, how about my
Okay.
voice?
Yeah, your voice is clear.
Alright, okay. So inshallah we'll start now. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good evening to you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. I see Kai Rina. Hi Kai. Thank you for joining in. Thank you so much. So for those of you who like very familiar with Read with the Tip past few episodes, this is not the typical setting. Okay, this is the new setting because first we want to introduce Anak Tertib to you guys. Okay, so as you guys know that Tertib Publishing have many imprints, to say that we have non-fiction book as well as children's book. So children's book are one of our imprints that we wanna, venture in, inshallah, in the future. So that's why we have Anak Tertib. And secondly, because our genius brother Zahin are not able to join us tonight, so hence the setting today. All right, so inshallah, without further delay, I would like, oh my god, I cannot call this invite, right? Because all of you can see Najibah right now in front of your screen. Oh gosh, okay.
It's okay.
This is weird. Okay, maybe, all right. Najibah, I think you have to introduce your name first because today we don't have your name under your picture like we usually do. So yeah, maybe you can introduce yourself first.
Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone, and I hope everyone is in the best of health and you have prayed your prayers, your Maghrib prayers, and maybe some of you are just about to have dinner, I don't know, but for those of you who have joined us, we thank you so much for sparing your time to listen to the talk tonight, book talk that we have. I haven't introduced myself. My name is Najibah Nasruddin. That's Sister Najibah Nasruddin. Okay, you might have seen me in a couple of series that we have done with Tertib across different books, about different books. So tonight we're going to continue with this wonderful book. It's called With the Heart in Mind. It looks like this. So it's called With the Heart in Mind, the Moral and Emotional Intelligence of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And it's written by Mikhail Ahmed Smith. So in the previous sessions that we've had, we have talked about the introduction, because this book has 5 chapters. And we've talked about the introductory chapter, chapter 1, chapter 2, and tonight we're going to start with chapter 3. But because chapter 3 is quite long, so I've decided to maybe split the discussion into 2 sessions of this live video, inshallah. So tonight we're going to start with talking about chapter 3, inshallah.
Yes, that's wonderful. yes, for those of you who may not know, previously we have done the introduction and we have done chapter 1 and chapter 2. So today we'll be continuing on chapter 3. All right, so we go live on Instagram and Facebook every second and third Wednesday every month. So you can expect our next session will be on 90th August, next Wednesday, inshallah. Sister Najibah will talk about chapter 3, the remaining chapter 3 after this session, inshallah. So for
Inshallah.
those of you who may have questions from this session, inshallah you can drop your questions on the comment section. And in the end of the session, after Sister Najibah finish with his sharing session, I will read the question to Sister Najibah and inshallah she will answer it for you guys. So inshallah, without further delay, Sister Najibah, the floor is yours, inshallah.
Okay, thank you so much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much, Sister Sophia. Like I said, we're going to start with talking about chapter 3. A bit about chapter 3 before I go on into talking about it. I'm not sure exactly whether if the book is getting more philosophical simply because it's the longest chapter in the book, or simply because I just forgot that the entire book is like this. It's very technical. It's very technical. But nevertheless, technical things mean more information, and when there's more information, you know, depending on how the author wrote the book, inshallah, it's really beneficial. And for me personally, it has been a wonderful insight for me because I've never particularly explored this area, especially from the perspective of our religion, Islam. And I think in the previous sessions I talked about how the themes of this book is mostly about, you know, studying the human behavior, looking at things from a psychological view. Yeah, I've studied about these subjects back when I was in university, but not particularly in the eyes of Islam. So yeah, it's been really good for me, and I enjoyed reading it. Okay, so to get started immediately, tonight I'm going to talk about, because there's so many things that the author talks about in the chapter. So I'm going to focus on two areas of topic. So the first area is called subjective morality, and the second area is I'm going to talk about how moral intelligence is a combination of vision and strength. Okay, so if you happen to have the book, the two topics that I talked about is the first two subheadings of the chapter, because if you wanted me, I mean, there's a lot of subheadings in this chapter because it's so long. But I think it's best for me to establish basic information about the things that come first in the chapter before I go deeper in the subsequent upcoming series that we might have in the future. So I think, that was why I chose the first two subheadings. Okay, so to revise or to recap a bit about what we talked about in the previous series, which was talking about chapter 2. Before, we talked about the emotional and psychological knowledge of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how we acknowledged that it was unmatched among, you know, as Muslims, we understand that he was the best representation of a human being on this earth. So his intellect regarding emotional and just psychology was, you know, unparalleled with any other human that have came onto this earth. Okay, so the reason being that he had such amazing emotional intelligence is because he was the messenger, and he was the final messenger in addition to being a messenger. So because he was the messenger and the final messenger, he had to ensure that God sent down a human being that was able to facilitate the delivery of you know, the message from God, in particular revelation. So to other people, to the people of his time, and to the people in the future generations to come. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about a chapter called Moral Intelligence. So moral intelligence is the second, according to the author of this book, moral intelligence is the second half of the prophetic
All right.
Okay, Sister
You're back.
Sophia, can you hear me? Okay, I'm
Yes, I
sorry.
can hear you.
It
I
seems
see
as
the
though
video paused
my
for
phone.
a few seconds.
Yes, yes,
Mm.
the video paused for a second. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so
Yeah.
to jump back to what I was talking about.
Mm.
So moral intelligence is the second half of the prophetic model of intelligence, and the essential knowledge that was placed in the hearts of the prophets to guide mankind back to guide mankind on their journey back to Allah. Okay,
Okay.
so based on the author, based on what he has elaborated in his book, Sheikh Mikhail mentioned that there's like two halves of the prophetic model. One half is the emotional intelligence, and the second half is the moral intelligence. So tonight we're going to talk about the moral intelligence. Okay, so according to this book, and the author actually cites another study about the definition of moral intelligence. The definition of moral intelligence is the capacity to process moral information and to manage the self in a way that realizes these moral ideals. So for example, let's say my moral ideal, this is just an example. My moral ideal is not to smoke. I don't like smoking, okay? So my moral
Mm.
ideal is not to smoke. So I manage myself in a way that I don't smoke. I don't just say it.
Mm.
I also
Practice
realize
it.
it through my
Mm.
actions.
Okay.
Yes, practice it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So that's the definition of moral intelligence. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, I want to go straight into subjective morality, because that's the topic that we're going to discuss about tonight. Okay, so
Okay.
what subjective morality is basically, according to this author, he begins explaining about subjective morality, like something that you like a set of rules that you enforce according to the different opinions of people, depending on their perspective and opinions. Okay, so basically, just imagine like it's a set of rules, but then because we live in a multi-cultural, multi-religion, you know, all sorts of multi things among our community. So
Okay.
we have to acknowledge, like, you know, like these people, they're not the same as us. So before we enforce a set of rules, we have to consider consider everyone.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Understood.
So all right. So the author gave an example on a football game, but because in the context of Sheikh Mikhail, because he's from America, football is basically American football. But it doesn't matter. Whatever game, okay,
Okay.
whatever game. Before playing this game, we all understand that every game needs a set of rules to be established. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
And because we're talking about a football game, he's talking from the perspective of his childhood, from his
Okay.
experiences in particular. So he lived on a particular street where this particular street had its own particular set of rules in
All
comparison
right.
to if he was to play at another street. Okay.
Ah.
So, okay, so you understand. So
Yeah.
maybe, okay, so I'm just going to go on. Depending on the street that you play, you know, any particular games or the people you played with, you're going to get slight variations of rules here and there.
Yes.
Right.
I
Okay.
I get it.
Okay. So the idea, so, sorry, the the idea is that this set of rules must be established before playing a game. That because that's how you're gonna get a meaningful game.
Mm.
It doesn't mean Okay, it doesn't mean that when you have a set of rules, people aren't going to break those rules, because you still get people who, you know, accidentally might break the rules by accident, or even you get players where they purposely want to break rules because
Okay.
I don't know, right? Okay, so yeah, that's the idea of having rules in a game. So this example, or this parallel, the author gave this parallel to reflect the idea of life, because in life we also need a set of rules if we're going to do right by one another, because, you know, like in this world we're going to have people who you know, do good and do bad, so we need a set of rules to keep everything in order.
Yes.
But as mentioned in our discussion about emotional intelligence in the previous series, we have to acknowledge that we live in different contexts. So that would mean countries, we live in different countries, we have different religions, we have different cultural practices, we even
Yes.
have different gender roles, right? So remember what I said about players breaking rules by accident and on purpose before?
Yes.
That's also the same. That's also the same with life, because people react or make decisions based on how they're feeling that day or at the time. So, for example, I'm having I don't know, something bothered me, and in the game that I'm playing, I purposely want to break rules because I want to hurt my opposition or something. So it's the same with
Okay.
life. We have
Yes.
different, you know, good days and bad days. Okay, so that's that. Um, so the second, so the second half of this moral intelligence is realizing these ideals that we have, practicing it, like you said earlier, fulfilling this knowledge that we have and executing it into our actions, into our behavior. So if you remember in the last session, I particularly struggled to find one meaningful quote that I was trying to look for.
Yes. I
I
remember
took
that.
forever, right? You remember? Okay.
Yes.
That quote that quote was so important to me because I think that is really relevant during our
Okay.
time today.
All
It's just
right.
last time I lost the bookmark that I, you know, marked the quote. So Alhamdulillah, I found it today and I'm going to read it to you,
Alhamdulillah.
okay? Okay.
Yes.
So in regards to everything that I just talked about earlier,
Okay.
um, the quote says, regardless of what a person may know, it is ultimately their actions that determine whether they are considered intelligent or not. Okay, so what that means is, despite however much you study, or despite however intelligent you are, it
How many
ultimately comes
books you
down
read?
to, yes, it ultimately comes down to the actions that you portray. So
Yeah.
let's say you learn about, right, you understand, right? So
Yeah.
again, back to the example of smoking, okay, because that's the only thing that I have in my mind right now. We learn
Okay.
about the harmful effects of smoking, but then we still get
Yeah.
people who smoke. It's not like they don't know what's going to happen to their body, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was what the quote explained just now, that it ultimately comes down to your actions to show whether if this intelligence of yours reflects it or not. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. So today, in our time today, we have a wide range of examples to reflect the statement that I just read. So just now I gave you the example of smoking, right? I think there are many more other examples which I'm not gonna, you know, start nitpicking on, but I want to say that, because I said that's happening in our society today, right? I'm not saying that this didn't happen throughout the ages, because I think I'm pretty sure it did. Like, despite whether if you live in the 21st century or in the 18th century, it doesn't really matter. But you're gonna have people who intelligent people who don't reflect through their behavior, or just, you know,
Yeah.
something like that. But because in our time today,
Right.
we're so connected now, we're able to see more,
Yeah.
right? We can see that we have an incredible amount of intelligent people, because everyone's so knowledgeable now. Everyone goes to school, everyone goes to university. Like, I mean,
Yes.
that's like an umbrella assumption, because we live in the city, right? It's more,
Yeah.
it's I mean, to compare with the previous times that we lived in. So, right, okay. So because we have so many intelligent people, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is morally sound. Okay?
Agree.
Okay. Okay. So now, because the human race is so amazingly complicated, we also get people who follow rules when they know they are being watched. And when they
Oh
know they aren't
God.
being watched, they return to breaking rules.
Yes.
I'm not trying to call you out here. No, I think we're gonna have to agree that we all do this. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
kind of rules we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
between us and okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so this part is where you get what the author calls rational moral subscription and irrational moral subscription. Okay, I'm going to break that down to you. So what rational moral subscription means: people who follow these rules, that they and the people around them have have collectively set together, and they follow these rules in a rational way because they understand the reason behind these rules, and then as a result of following these rules, they gradually change. Like this, there's this change that happens, right? Okay, if we can agree to that. I'm speaking in a very general term because the book is quite general in that sense. So I hope if there's any areas that you want clarification on, maybe you can just ask me.
Yes.
And then I see whether if I can find an example. Okay. So again, there are people who follow these rules that they and the people have set together in a rational way, simply because they just understand, and then they gradually change. And then there are another set of people who follow these rules, but in an irrational way, and might not have complete understanding of these reasons, of the reasons why they need to follow these rules, or so as a result of that, they end up complying, or they end up just blindly following when they know they are being watched. Okay. Because they don't understand, they don't have that understanding why they need to follow. Okay. So when there's no understanding, there's no change in behavior. Okay. So okay, let's talk about smoking again.
Okay.
So there are areas, in our country, there are smoking areas and there are non-smoking areas. So simply put, in areas where you can't smoke, obviously there's rules enforced, right? So they don't smoke there. But then when they're away from these areas, like nobody's watching, they just smoke, even though it's harmful for them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think something that I might have failed to explain, even from the very beginning of our series with this book in particular, is that, and I learned this after listening to one of the audios on Kalam podcast. So Kalam podcast is what Sheikh Mikhail Ahmed Smith is a part of. He's a part of Kalam Institute, and they have this podcast where they have audio clips of all the workshops or all the talks that they the issues that they talk about, sometimes to do with this book, sometimes to do with other topics. So I learned this information from one of the audio clips on Kalam podcast, okay, given by Sheikh Mikhail himself. And he said that this book actually aims to identify what moral intelligence is, what emotional intelligence is, what akal is, the idea of akal, the idea of intelligence, in comparison to giving a set of instructions on how to achieve or master these skills. So this book isn't really a instruction book or a manual. It's more about explaining what these intelligences are. Okay, so everything that I explained to you just now, because you might be wondering, okay, I understand everything that's being said, but how do I achieve this? So this book doesn't address that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Kalam Institute is actually working on that, working on creating
Oh,
content to teach how one can master these skills. And I
amazing.
actually checked out their website. They have these online lessons, and what is so amazing is that it's absolutely free. All you have to do is just register, and these classes, they have it every week. So maybe if you
Oh,
look up, if you Google Kalam Institute online learning on Google,
mm-hmm.
inshallah, you'll be able to find these classes. I was so shocked because they are free. Like very rarely in our time today that you get free classes.
Yes.
And yeah, so inshallah, you can check that out. Okay, so moving on. Now, if you remember what I said earlier about subjective morality, that is the making of rules to accommodate the needs of different people. Remember the football game played at different streets, right?
Yep.
Okay. Another important principle, or another two important principles to consider, is that this author, he quoted another book written by another professor called Peter Kreeft. Peter Kreeft is a Catholic. He's a Catholic professor. He's written like so many books, and Sheikh Mikhail actually cites a lot of his works in this book. Okay, so what Peter Kreeft talked about is these two important principles. There's two important principles about morality that a person needs to understand. So the first principle is that the foundation of social order is morality. So that means if we want to achieve social order in society, we need to have morality. The second important principle, is that the foundation of morality is religion. Okay, so what what would you call it, like the foundational brick? If you wanted to build a house, you need like the foundations, right, of the
Yep.
bricks that would
Yep.
set, yeah, right, to build the house. So
Yeah.
the foundation of morality is actually religion. So religion, if you imagine that, like, as being building blocks, religion, morality, and then you get social order. So the basis is religion. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so this is going to link
Yeah.
to the second part of the discussion tonight. Okay,
Mm.
the second part of the discussion tonight is, like I said, it's like the subheading of it, I would probably call it the how moral intelligence is a combination of vision and strength. Okay, and how the acknowledgement of our own blindness and our weakness towards our own moral ideals is the ailment, or is the illness in our society today. If we even wanted to start thinking about curing these moral problems that we might have. Okay, so we need
Mm.
to start acknowledging that we are actually blind and we don't have strength towards, in moral intelligence. We need to learn more about this. Okay, so that's the topic of the second part of the discussion tonight, inshallah. Okay, so the author spoke about how the further away we get from the Prophet's era, so in reference to this book, particularly the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the further away we live, away from his time, is
Mm.
we are going, the further away that we are, the more we're going to be attacked and threatened in terms of our moral identity, and basically everything that represents our ideas. Because when he was living at the time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the portrayal of, the perfect moral intelligence. So now that we don't have that, we have to rely on the Holy Quran and his hadith and sunnah, right? So yeah, I mean, it's logic, right? So we don't have that physical representation anymore, so we're just gonna have to represent that character in ourselves, inshallah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
what we're forgetting is that as human beings, in order for us to represent his sunnah and, like, his ideals, we need to have a sound understanding of these ideals. And more often than not, we we are lost in translation. Like we read, we study about these things, but then when we try to represent it in ourselves, the meaning and the understanding is lost within our own translation or interpretation of
Yeah.
yeah, right? Okay. So
So relatable.
okay, so as everyone know, I'm clearly not a
Yeah.
scholar on this, right? Like, even this area is new to me. But if I was to speak from the perspective of the limited knowledge of my Muslim self, people are really quick to judge these days. And I think it could be from the combination of oversharing things, the things we do, and like, again, the freedom of access that we have towards these information, you know, because we're just so open nowadays. The point is that this judgment that we have is coming from the limitation of our knowledge and the limitation of our understanding towards so many things, like the knowledge area that we're criticizing perhaps, or the lives of the people that we're looking into, the reasons behind why they act the way they do. We don't know these things. So somehow this judgment believes that there are what this author calls non-competing truths. So what that means is, imagine there's like a set of truths. These truths can't compete with one another, okay? This is our judgment right now. Because person A says, oh, he can do this, she can do this, or and then person B goes, oh, he can't do this, she can't do this. Like, but they're talking about the same thing. So that's the idea of non-competing truths. Like everyone saying that everyone's speaking the truth, but you can't compete, okay? So because of this, it attacks the soundness of the akal, or the soundness of our intelligence. And then this judgment thinks that everything, this judgment that we have thinks that everything is relative. Everything could be right, everything could be wrong. So there's no ultimate good, okay? Meanwhile, based on the Islamic understanding of religion, of intelligence, or akal, in terms of God's commands or God's rules that He has set for us to follow, is that we believe in an authority of conscience, okay, and it ultimately leads back to the authority of Allah. So even if there are a set of non-competing truths, ultimately the ultimate truth is from our God, okay? And we can't debate that. So when we go back to talking about subjective morality, even from the word subjective, right? Subjective basically means there's many interpretations of different things. So when we lean towards the subjective understanding of morality, these ideals that we preach, so-called preach, is bound to get loose or weak because it's coming from ourselves. So again, the author quotes Peter Kreeft, this Catholic professor. He mentioned that subjective morality is basically an oxymoron. Now, an oxymoron is something when you put two words together and they clash against each other. They don't. So, for example, a cruel kindness. So there's cruel and then there's kindness. Like it clashes, right? So subjective morality is the same. It clashes. It's an oxymoron. The two words contradict. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Contradict one another. And Peter Kreeft continues that it's not morality at all at the end of the day. And he gave the example that when humans make the rules, they can change them, which doesn't reflect that important principle that we talked about, that the foundation of morality needs to be religion, okay?
Exactly.
Okay.
They can change them and fit into their lust and everything, their ego.
Yes,
Right?
because us humans, we're just so amazingly complicated. We have lust, we have ego, we have so many things, right? And that's what makes us us. Okay. So I think because you said that, I think you understand where I'm going with this, okay? So I think that's all I have to say. But to summarize, I want you to think about this. What Peter Kreeft essentially spoke about was how morality it's supposed to be something that binds us and keeps us from harming ourselves. So remember the smoking example?
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Right. Yes.
Wow.
Morality is to keep us in order. Remember social order. Okay. But if we were to tie ourselves, we're not really bounded. Because when things get hard, we can untie ourselves from our morality, like you said earlier. Okay. So
Oh my God.
right. So at the end of the day, morality needs to be something that exists independent from ourselves. Away, like it cannot come from us, which is why Peter Cree spoke about the foundational base of morality needs to be religion. It needs to be some sort of revelation, holy revelation. Okay. So yeah, subjective morality isn't morality at all. If we were to play football again, back to the football example, the Peter Kreeft, Peter Kreeft mentioned that if we were to play football, it's simply a goalpost that moves to wherever you kick the ball. So if you're playing football, wherever you kick, you're gonna get a goal because this goalpost keeps moving, and it's going
Yeah.
to suit right. It's going to suit your needs, okay, and your desires.
Yes.
So okay, so and yeah, everything that we spoke about tonight, I think personally, I think we can see a lot of that in this world today. And yeah, the author is talking about the commands of God, and the commands of God basically means there needs to be a right and wrong. We're not talking about the gray areas where various interpretations can be taken into consideration, like, you know, some, I don't know. But for example, something like praying maybe, or there's no, it's black and white, like you need to follow these set of rules. So when we loosen these commands of Allah, this you know, when we get weak with the authority of Allah, that's when we gradually lose sight and our strength towards a sound set of moral ideals. So yeah, it explains about this blindness and this weakness that we have towards moral intelligence. So I think I've covered the two areas that I aimed to talk about tonight.
That's great. So I just want to ask. So there is no
Okay,
subjective
sure.
morality at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the way I talked about it, a subjective morality is basically it's a concept that we created. We created,
Okay.
right? We created it because we want to accommodate to different people, like we want to accommodate to different people who come from this
Yeah.
country, or we want to accommodate people of this religion, of this gender, of this age. So subjective morality is an oxymoron. I think it depends on where
It
you
opposed to each
stand.
other, right? Oh my God.
It depends on where you stand. If you think that it exists, then yeah, it exists in your dictionary. But as Peter Kreeft mentioned, as Peter Kreeft mentioned, these professors who have, you know, qualifications and studied about these things, they say that it's a contradiction. Like when we make the rules, we are able to change it. So yeah, just remember that the foundation of morality needs to be religion at the end of the day, inshallah.
All right. That's great. It's really mind blowing. Okay, so what we're gonna expect on the next episode of Radio 30. I am so, I don't know. It is very mind blowing, seriously. So in the next episode of Radio 30, do we get to know more about moral intelligence?
Okay, definitely. Now I'm going to give you like a sneak preview maybe of what's coming
Wow.
up. Yes, to keep you on the edge of your seats and wanting to hear more. But I spoke about the things I spoke about tonight was just like a tiny fraction of what the author explained, because we have time constraint, right? So there's so many things, there's so many more insights that I really wanted. Like when I was going through this book, I was like, oh my God, I had such a difficult time to choose which one I want to talk about. But like I said, I think I needed to talk about that because I think it's the most simple thing, one of the most simple things to understand, because this book is really technical and quite complex if you like really get into it. But yeah, I think I needed to highlight the simple basic things so that everyone can understand what moral intelligence is, because sometimes, you know, these terms, it sounds very far away from us. Like we listen, we hear, and then we listen to these terms and we're like, what does that mean? But it's basic. Yeah, it's just simple things. It's just simple things. But again, there's so many things in this book. I really recommend you to get yourself a copy and just study it, because there's so many. Back to that sneak peek for next week. Back to that sneak peek. Next week, inshallah, I'm going to talk about what the author calls a framework for moral intelligence. So remember I said this book is not really about how to teach you to have emotional or moral intelligence, but he does explain some sort of a framework for someone to identify what they need to have in them in order to have moral intelligence. So inshallah, next week I will talk about this framework. Inshallah, yeah.
All right. That is really eye-opener for me, because I think you arrange your point like very nice. You know, I was so excited to hear about subjective morality, but then when you say somehow it's true that we define morality in our own understanding and dictionary. You know, we thought, okay, this is moral, this is what morality is, but actually yeah, it's a vast topic that inshallah
Yeah.
we'll discuss more next week, right?
Inshallah. I think, sorry, I just thought of this. I don't know if this is an appropriate example to give, or, to continue with your elaboration that you said just now. When we change things, right? Yeah, again, I don't know if this is an appropriate example to give, but I just suddenly thought of abortion. Okay, the idea of abortion, how
Yes.
different countries, right, different countries, they across the years, like they are fighting whether if women should have the right to abort their children. But in Islam,
Yep.
we know that it started with zina, right? So zina was the root. If we followed, and that was the command of Allah, like if we followed strictly that is black and white, right? Like you shouldn't even come close to zina, then we wouldn't even have to consider having an abortion. I mean, if we're talking about
Abortion.
children outside of marriage, if it's to do with illnesses and I don't know, it's beyond my area of knowledge, then wallahu alam. But to do with children outside of legal marriages, and then now we're fighting whether if we should have abortion or not, because in the very beginning, we don't even follow the black and whites of the rules.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was to support what you said earlier.
Totally agree. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Just to think of it, like how beautiful Islam is. You know, Allah has laid down all the prescriptions for us, and it's just us to follow it or not. You know, to live a happy life. You know.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's so beautiful that you put it that way, because yeah, we're the ones who make it complicated, right?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna check our Instagram comments if
Okay.
any comments. I see. So far there are no comments from our viewers. I think
Okay.
they are just like me, too focused on your sharing session.
Inshallah.
Because it is really beautiful, Najiba, like so beautiful. I don't know how you arrange your points and everything. It's so beautiful. I cannot wait to
Thank
hear
you.
more. Another episode of It with Tertib, inshallah.
Okay.
So I think maybe last word from you.
Last word from me. Okay. Would it be okay if I wanted to read an excerpt from the book? Because,
Yes, sure.
right? Okay. Because, yeah, just to use up the final minutes that we have with this Instagram live.
Okay.
There was a super interesting story that I came across. That when I read it, I was just mind blown because it it supports even more this idea of how this right and wrong needs to come from an upper authority and not from us.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So I'm going to read you about this. Sorry, this excerpt is about the story of the Tower of Babel. If you might have heard about it before, it's actually one of the stories in the book of Genesis, the Bible.
Okay.
So it's if you Google it, the Tower of Babel, you will be able to find out more
Babel?
about it. But Babel, Babel, Babel.
Okay.
Okay,
Babel.
so I'm going to read you the story. Okay, so
Okay.
the story tells us that mankind, forgetting their dependence upon God, began to see themselves unstoppable. They felt that nothing was beyond their grasp so long as they work together, which sounds familiar in our society.
Ouch.
It was
Okay.
willpower and technology combined that made all things possible according to them. So they decided that they wanted to build a tower to the heavens and see their creator. And so the construction commenced. As all mankind collectively strove to reach God, their tower grew higher and higher day by day, until one morning God punished them by making their speech unintelligible to one another. They were all speaking different languages. No longer able to work together, the people dispersed throughout the earth, eternally divided by the barriers of language. This was a punishment for their audacity. It is from this story we get the English word babbling for unintelligible speech. They attempted to reach God through earthly means, but failed. Okay? It is only through God sending down revelation that mankind is able to connect to God. Revelation is the bridge by which man reaches God. It is a tower or bridge which descends to man. So descends means come down. The two towers are drastically different. The Tower of Babel has a limited earthly foundation, so it lacks the strength to carry man to God. Whereas Revelation's foundation is from the heavens, which makes it strong enough for man to traverse. Similar is the case with subjective or relative morality. Its foundation is here on earth, so it can never bring man to his salvation. The end.
Wow. Only through revelation we can connect to God, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that was I mean if uh, according to the book of Genesis, that is how we get different languages across the world. It started with the Tower of Babel.
I see. All right.
Okay.
I feel so
So that
good
was my
after your
last word.
sharing. I feel so good after your sharing. It's really good. Najiba, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I think that's about it. The sharing
Mm-hmm.
from Najiba tonight. I want to thank all of you guys who have been watching us tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with us. I just have few announcements to make, inshallah. So first of all, like we are reviewing a book by Shay Mikhail Smith titled With the Heart in Mind. So Al Maghrib Malaysia on 22nd and 23rd, Shay Mikhail Smith will have a class with Al Maghrib Malaysia. So don't forget to check out Al Maghrib Malaysia's Instagram to find out more about the class. I have watched the first class, Sheikh Mikhail Smith first class with Al Maghrib Malaysia, and it was totally good. I can guarantee you that. So maybe you don't want to miss the next class with Al Maghrib Malaysia on 22nd and on 23rd. So don't forget to check out on Al Maghrib Malaysia Instagram. Second announcement, inshallah. So as you guys can see, we are live with different setup and everything because we want to introduce you to Anak Tertib. You guys know that Tertib Publishing have, non-fiction, fiction book and children's book are one of them. So we decide to have Anak Tertib so that we can produce and publish our own children's product. So recently we have launched our new ebook. So title, the first one is Allah Will Protect Me. So as I say, it is in ebook in PDF format because we have very exciting activity at the back of the book so that you can print them, like coloring activity. Okay.
Wow.
A very exciting activity for you, mommies and daddies, to, do it with your little ones. This one, 40 ringgit, our promotional price. Our normal price is 45, so don't forget to get it on Tertib.press. We also have in Malay version.
Wow.
So Allah Jagalah Saya in Malay version. So it's similar to the Allah Will Protect Me, full colored pages, and have many interesting activities included with the answers. And as for the coloring activities, we do have contests. So if you can check out, if you color the page and then you tag us on Instagram and Facebook, Anak_Tertib, and the interesting work, inshallah, will receive mysterious prize. All right.
Ooh.
Okay, that's about it for our new product on Anak Tertib. Inshallah, to many more. We are working on few more children's educational products. So keep us in your prayers, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen.
Okay, so I think that's about it. Inshallah, we will see you guys next week on
Okay.
90th August again with Najibah Nasruddin. Inshallah, next week on Wednesday on chapter 3, part 2 with the Heart in Mind by Sheikh Mikhail Smith. Inshallah, until then, thank you so much for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.